NSFW, what is the dumbest thing you did because you were horny? I had intense sex with someone after not sleeping the previous night and not having enough water or eating anything the entire day and fainted right after. I was incredibly stressed and focused on work all night and day before she got to my apartment. We originally had planned to get me some food and water first, but somehow ended up talking in depth about our weird ambiguous relationship and our feelings, which got really emotional, and that led to sex. Despite my exhaustion, I found a hidden well of energy within myself and went at it really hard. It was honestly great, much better than I expected given my state. But afterward, when she was actually going to order food, I went to the bathroom to wash up and suddenly realized I felt nauseous. No matter how hungry I had been a moment prior, the thought of eating was now repulsive, unthinkable. I became very hot and started sweating, felt weak and shaky. I tried to leave the bathroom and called out to her for help. I woke up on the bathroom floor 15 seconds later by her count. I apparently collapsed and briefly lost consciousness, and she claimed she tried to catch me but couldn't reach in time. I'm lucky I didn't seriously injure myself on one of the hard edges in there. Just hurt my shoulder a little. I had met a girl while traveling through her city and really hit it off. After spending the day with her, we went out to maybe find a hotel. I was staying with extended family. We couldn't find anything, and we ended up getting a little hot and heavy in my little 4-banger car. After making out, I went down on her, and after that she said she wasn't comfortable going forward, which is totally understandable, since that was the first time she'd even had a guy go down on her, and had never gone down on a dude. We ended up going back to my extended family's house to cuddle/grind/make-out/etc. We said our goodbyes and she ended up sneaking out before they woke up. While continuing the road trip, which was with my sister no less by the way, I started the drive and the entire first hour I was just throbbing rock hard and horny. I couldn't take it anymore and decided I would pull over to take a shit at the next gas station. It was one of the dirtiest gas stations I've ever been at. I sat down and there wasn't even a handle on the stall door, so I had to worry about somebody walking right in or even seeing through the hole, and people did stop in to use the restroom. I rubbed one out as quickly as possible and got the F out of there. Maybe not the dumbest thing, but if I can do that, then all the motherfuckers that whine and use blue balls as an excuse to pressure women into doing something they aren't comfortable with can eat that cum sheet filled toilet I left at that dirty gas station. Respect consent. I can give you a story about ignoring the red flags with this girl because I was horny. Apologies because it is a long story. I matched with a lady named Vanessa. Her profile mentioned that she just moved to Minnesota and she liked spending weekends chilling by the lake. I lead off with a comment about picking the right place to move if she likes hanging out by lakes. Things took off from there. We started chatting and it moved to kick. I should have known something was a little off because she would be asking me to pick out her outfits she was wearing for the day. There is nothing inherently wrong with that after a while. Some people just have that kink where they want their partner to choose what they wear. We had not even discussed going on a date yet, and she was doing this. I was a horny dude in my 20s and didn't see it as a red flag I do now. Anyway, we finally did decide to go on a date. The night before she sent me like 10 different pictures of her in different cute outfits telling me she needed me to choose her outfit for her. Again, now I see it was weird because we never discussed any kinks or anything. She also said she wanted me to choose the place. I chose a hidden gem bar on one of our many lakes. She told me she loved it. She loved that I paid attention to her profile. She apologized that she was taller than the profile said. This girl was definitely taller than me, but I didn't care. Conversation went pretty well. It turns out she grew up in Scotland, and it took her years to lose her Scottish accent. She hinted that if I worked her up well enough, her Scottish accent would be thick. I decided to close our tab before we got drunk. We went walking by this lake and talked some more. We had to cross a street at one point, and then she grabbed my hand saying I need you to hold my hand when we cross the street, because it's too scary without you guiding me. Even me in my 20s was taken back. Anyways, we got back to the parking lot. She got really nervous. I asked her what the problem was. She said she really liked me, but she wasn't ready to go home with me. She needed to wait for her next paycheck to buy something cute for me on our next date. She sheepishly asked me if I could give her some money for the bus fare to get home, as the date lasted longer than she expected, and she spent the last of her money thinking she could use it to go home. I told her I understood and asked what it cost. She said about $3.50. I remained calm and told her in a stern tone, "I will never give a plesiosaur like you any money, you Loch Ness monster." Tentacles came out and she scurried away into the lake. The goddamned Loch Ness monster catfished my horny ass. Edit, thanks for the gold. Almost got caught tugging on the Oscar Mayer in my hospital room. Broke my foot a couple of months ago in a car wreck. Was in the ICU for 3 days, hooked up to wires. Could barely move to go to the restroom. Then 3 days later they put me into a normal room. They finally hooked me up on a portable heart machine to check my vitals. After all these days, not being able to caress the serpent these two spheres dangling from my body was calling for justice and release. Fighting the urge, undeniably, I surrendered to this unholy manner. I was able to go to the restroom by myself. I took my phone with me, remembering the quote from The Dark Knight, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Let's just say I chose the latter. So about 3 minutes in, while watching nurse-themed videos, so wish I was lying, all I hear is banging on the door from a nurse asking me if I'm okay. She was saying through the door my heart rate was up to 170. Me freaking out. Totally forgot that I had the portable heart monitor on. I told her that I was fine. That I was taking a number 2. And was having a difficult time trying to get it out. Making up a total complete lie while still having this hard flesh gripped around my hands. After the cleansing of my body, I cleaned the filth that had protruded from me. I had a boot on for my foot that I quickly thought of and tucked the phone inside to hide the evidence, feeling like I was on the show 60 Days In. I then hurried and opened the door. Luckily, from the sheer panic, I had my chinchilla tail decreased rapidly to find a doctor and 5 nurses waiting outside. It was like I was dying to them. Oh boy, where do I fucking begin? Okay, 2017. 2018. It was when the Friday the 13th game was super hot. I had never really played online before, so playing this game opened up my friend circle, and I made a lot of new online friends who I still play with. Enter Jake, as we will codename him, a handsome married dad out in Tennessee, like 70 miles from Knoxville I think. This dude would flirt and croon, and all our online friends were like, "Is Jake hitting on you?" Well, one thing leads to another, and somehow he admits to some hetero flexibility, and I'm on a plane planning a 3-day visit to some bumpfuck Tennessee town for Dick. All 3 days, homeboy gets called into work, so we only hang out part of the day for one of those days. We get lunch, we go shopping, Dollywood was closed, go back to my hotel, before he goes back to work, and I'm ready. He talked a big game. I got condoms, lube, born, whatever he needs. Dude never even took off his boots and came from a blue job in under 5 minutes. Then he got baptized and is all Jesusy and loving his wife. The trip wasn't the worst though. I scored twice with 2 other visitors, had some bomb food, had no reception, so really got to be left alone without phone calls, and my cousin, who I haven't seen since we were 5, lives in Knoxville and drove up twice to hang out, and we had a blast. I also did some great shopping. Now, there was the time I'll let a high school track coach spank me. He has me over his knee and he spanks me, and I'm like, whatever. Didn't hurt. Dude starts hitting harder and faster, and now I'm like, fuck you, I ain't reacting. Well, I turn around and I see he took off his Jesus slipper sandal and is beating me with it. What the fuck? And is so turned on that he comes as soon as I went down on him. Well, he leaves. My roommate makes a comment that it sounded obscene in my room. I ask him how bad my butt looks from getting spanked, and I hear the gayest gasp. The rest of the night my 2 roommates are pouring peroxide on me in the shower and helping me spread witch hazel on my bum because I was purple. Couldn't sit for a week. Then, when I was 19, I went to my first gay bathhouse. No one knew I went. It is blackout night, so lights are dimmed or completely off. I'm a virgin and terrified. Was told all my life that unprotected sex would mean I would get AIDS and drop dead. So I'm walking around in my towel and socks on, which gets soggy when I hit the steam room. So now I'm holding soggy socks with fogged up glasses, and I feel someone walking behind me. I'm playing cool, right? I keep walking. I'm gonna get some. I turn down a hall and see two guys slowly approach me, but I can't see their faces. The hallway is small, and I begin to panic because we all slow to a crawl. The guy behind me is literally breathing on me. The guys in front of me block me in. The short one in front of me keeps moving when I try to get around him. Now my fight or flight instinct kicks in, and I shove this faker out of the way and realize it's a faking mirror. It was so dark I couldn't make out my own reflection. Years later I would get a concussion after sitting in a set swing and getting faked and having my head rammed into the wall, but I was too proud to be like time out. Instead I was like, I'm fine, keep going. Not the smartest idea, lol. When I was 14, I got my first job night cleaning the office where my mother worked in nursing administration. It was a 1, maybe 2 hour job that I regularly took over 5 hours to complete because I faffed off, ate desk candy, and played with the office computers. I also did an atrocious job of cleaning. Well, this was in the early 90s, and one thing that was really taking off at the time were phone search lines. I, being a dumb kid and having zero idea that phone numbers could be tracked, found an ad for one of these lines in a newspaper that was on someone's desk and decided to call it. Next night, I did it again and again. After about a month I had racked up over $800 in phone line surcharges. At that time, the charge would just be appended to your phone bill. The office manager found the charges on the bill and immediately put 2 and 2 together. She handled it very professionally, approaching my mother privately and asking her if she had any idea where these charges could be coming from. My mother subsequently went off on me that night, and that's the story of how I almost got my mother fired and also worked for 2 months without pay to compensate the company for losses. All told, she and I both got very lucky. The office manager didn't pursue legal action or civil restitution and was willing to let me work off the charges. My mother beat the crap out of me, though. Cute girl, we'll call her Tiffany, slid into my DMs on Insta. Red flag number 1 that I confidently ignored. Her account had no pictures, but had thousands of followers/following, so I just figured she was doing that thing where people erase their post history. Red flag 2 in the rear mirror. We started chatting over the course of a couple hours before things heated up, and she wanted to play a sexy game where we'd send nudes, but couldn't take screenshots of each other. Tiffany sent hers, and then said it was my turn. You can probably see where this is going. Sending nudes isn't really my thing, because my thing ain't all that, but the thirst's hold on me was too strong, and I sent it anyways. Boom. Immediate screenshot and then radio silence from her end for what felt like forever, but was probably only a couple minutes. Tiffany then responds with the picture I'd sent her, along with screenshots of people who follow me, and explained that if I didn't send $300, that she'd send the nudes to everyone on my list, even if I blocked her. My heart sunk faster than my penis as I realized I'd been got. As I sat down to collect myself, the messages kept coming, this time with a voice message. A heavy, thick African accent that definitely didn't belong to cute little Tiffany continued making demands. They were already sending it to people I knew and threatening to ruin my life. I was terrified. Everyone was going to know I had a small dick. But in a moment that I'm still proud of to this day, I found my heart along with my courage and told the scammer to go fuck himself. I wasn't going to pay him a nickel. Tiffany continued to send screenshots of people they'd sent my nude to and ask me how much money I had to pay, and if I paid them anything, they would stop. What the scammer didn't realize, however, was that they had set me free. If everyone knew I had a small dick, I didn't have to worry about it anymore. So I told Tiffany I had $0 to give and that he had scammed the wrong guy. Fire away. Tiffany probably sent my nudes to a couple dozen people by the time he finally gave up and got tired of me egging him on to send more. He wasn't going to get his money, and he certainly wasn't going to win the mental game with the way I was responding. I had a few kind people send DMs to let me know I had been hacked, but the fallout wasn't as bad as I had first imagined. Every decision I had made on that journey was probably a dumb one, but in a weird way, I'm stronger now, because of my own stupidity. So thank you, Tiffany, wherever you are. You set me free. When I was 21, I borrowed my mother's car during a family visit back in my home state, to drive 2 hours out of town for a Grindr hookup. My first mistake was parking in the guy's apartment complex in a numbered spot. In my defense, the numbers were very faded. While inside, I took a hit off the guy's blunt mistake #2, having smoked maybe 2 times before in my life. I don't know where he got his sheet, but it was already a bad trip almost immediately. So we did our thing. I never even finished, because I was tripping and uncomfortable and he was just really bad at sex. After telling him I was bored and was going to head out, I left, and as you might have guessed, no more car. I knocked on his door, and he answers looking smug like forget something, so I told him my car is gone. He just laughs and says again. Somewhere in my subconscious I was fuming that this wasn't the first time this has happened around him, and he didn't think to warn me, but he offered to drive me to the tow yard, and I was sheeting my pants about how I was going to get out of this without my mother finding out, so I didn't make a big deal out of it. Cold, blue-balled, high as fuck, I was desperate to get it back and just be home again. So I called the tow company. The tow fee was $150. The after hours retrieval fee costed an additional $90. For every attempt. Attempt #1, cash only. Come back when you've got cash. Plus $90 attempt #2, only the owner of the vehicle can retrieve the car. Plus $90. Attempt #3, she can't come, because you have her car. Get a notarized letter. Plus $90 every new problem that cropped up incurred another after hour fee. Oh, and by the way, the dude never left the office. He legit just closed the shutters, and I had to call the service number again each time I solved whatever hoop they told me to jump through, and each time was another fee. Finally I had to admit defeat when he said to go get a notarized letter. It was 8 PM by then. No banks were open. I'd have to call for help as my sister just happened to be a notary for the bank she worked for though. Turns out she was visiting our mother at that very moment. Nowhere left to turn. I had to admit it all right then and there what was going on to both of them. I did admit that it was a hookup. I lied and said I was visiting a childhood friend, but she definitely wasn't impressed. $420, one notary letter, and not a remaining ounce of pride later. I had the car back. All I could really process was how I fervently hoped this would be the most money I'd ever have to spend on a hoe. Data line. 1994. Our subject is marred in a mediocre career in music and is deep in sexual addiction. Because my addiction had a sad connection to wanting to actually feel loved, I went 0 for way too many on that one. I agreed to house sit for a girl with whom I was hooking up. She was the original house sitter. That's important, I think. Anyhow, the house was actually a huge loft in Manhattan that belonged to an artist. The artwork was colossal sculptures of female genitals that had plumbing and were seeded to essentially be massive, 8-foot-tall chia vulvas. My 3rd or 4th visit, I remember feeling odd in this darkened loft, surrounded by vulvas, when I got a text, going to be there soon. Oh goody. I got next to naked and started working on my erection. This girl liked rough and quick. I was going to take her as she came in. FWIW, she went to NIU and lived on Long Island. The house sitting was a favor, so she had more time in the day. In deference to the oddness of the setting, I decided to don this sort of indigenous mask that had been left lying there and lie in front of the biggest, most obvious vulva. I heard the key turning in the lock, and in walks the building super. It turns out, I'd missed the part about inspection. He will be there soon. So this elderly Italian building super walks in to see a guy in an indigenous mask stroking his erection in front of an 8-foot-tall vulva. And I will never forget what he said. I just need 5 minutes. I haven't posted on Reddit for a long time, and I'm not sure why I'm replying to this thread, but here it goes. One time as a teenager I felt a sudden need to feed the geese. I'm not an attractive person. I wasn't then, and I'm not now. so I couldn't just call up someone and say hey let's do it. I was tired of doing it myself and I needed to find a new means of handling this. I was in the kitchen fixing a sandwich and I opened a cabinet to get some chips because I would put them on it and I saw a sandwich bag. For some reason my mind started racing and ideas started forming. After finishing that sandwich, I need to take a piss so off to the bathroom I go. While this is happening, I look over and see Vaseline. I take that and go to my room. I sat on my couch and the idea that night is one that I'll never be proud of. I placed a sandwich bag in between my couch cushions. These cushions were the kind that you just don't place on a couch. It's the ones where you have to place one down and slide the side of it under the armrest and the same one the other end. So it was quite tight between those cushions. I took the Vaseline and lined the inside of the bag with it. I was quite proud of how I had a MacGyver moment and made a new way to take care of my needs. The only problem was sandwich bags were disappearing and mom wasn't sure why. One day while I was at school, my mom found 3 sandwich bags in my room. She asked that night why they were in my room. I didn't know what to say other than my friend left them on accident. Stupid. A few years ago I, mid-30s male, started chatting with someone on a dating website. My hormones got the better of me and they convinced me send them nudes. Once they had what they wanted they hacked my Facebook account and tried to blackmail me into buying them Bitcoin, saying they would post my nudes on Facebook and send them to my work. I suspended my Facebook and Instagram accounts immediately. Then I called the police. Obviously, they couldn't really do anything about it. But here's the thing about my work. I'm an independent contractor, so I rarely meet other people from my company. And the ones I do talk to via phone/email don't know what I look like. So I decided to have some fun at this person's expense. I told them I hadn't worked in months because of the pandemic, lol. They told me to go to my bank and withdraw my money and go to a Bitcoin machine. I claimed I was having trouble finding a working ATM and I couldn't text and drive. Mind you, I'm sitting on my couch and giggling as I led them on. After a few minutes he texts me back and I tell him it's dark out and I can't see while texting and driving. After claiming to ask for directions and finally arriving at the location I told him I had only $53.27 in my account. I then claimed the machine isn't letting me send the money, saying it keeps giving me an error message. He gives me more instructions to scan the barcode he sent, but I tell him the same thing, there's an error and to see an employee. See the employee to put you faking through and compose yourself, he tells me. After explaining the banks are all closed he gets frustrated. He instructs me to send him a $50. After telling him the cards cost $5, so I decide I'm ready to end this game. After some more shenanigans I decide to finish this little adventure. I sent him a picture of a police officer's car in a rearview mirror that I googled. He tells me to finish up with them quickly. I explain that I have a warrant out for my arrest. Sheet, I think he's calling for backup, followed with bye as my final messages. TLDR, sent dudes to a catfish and realized he couldn't do sheet. So I pretended to go on a wild goose chase to send him what little money I had. That ended with him thinking I got arrested. One of my middle school classmates that I was in a group chat with sent me a DM saying if I sent her dick pics she would trade nudes. Obviously I did, but she ghosted me. An hour later at around 11 PM, after I had gone to bed, my father burst into my room screaming, and my mother was audibly sobbing in the living room. Apparently as some sort of sick prank, after I sent the pics she deleted the messages she had sent asking for them, then showed it to her mother to make it look as if I had sent unsolicited nudes. Her mother then found my parents and their phone numbers on Facebook and blew up their phones telling them I was some sort of rapist harassing her daughter. Faking idiot apparently didn't realize the messages that she deleted were only hidden on her end and could still be seen on my phone. Embarrassing as it was, I was able to show my parents and explain the situation. That didn't stop her from spreading rumors around and showing people my pictures, and I ended up getting picked on pretty badly by people who believed her. Eventually law enforcement got involved and investigated the situation after the school found out. I got a very stern talking to from a deputy about what is and is not okay to do with a camera, and they had my parents take my phone away. Her parents were more or less given the choice between expulsion or criminal prosecution, so she was expelled, and they moved away. To this day as an adult I occasionally run into people I went to school with at the time, who still believe her, and think I'm a scumbag who got an innocent girl expelled, because she didn't reciprocate unsolicited dick pics. Met a girl online, drove 2 hours south to her place, let her sneak me into the house, to not wake her roommates, and proceeded to bang like rabbits. When her roommates, parents, woke up, she got too loud. Her mom confronted me and called for her husband to come and bring your gun. Her mom, held me at gunpoint, naked, face down with my hands behind my head, on the cold tile floor of their living room, while her husband called the local sheriff's office and said, "There's a man in my house, whom I don't know, who just had sex with my 16-year-old daughter." I was 21, and she had claimed she was 19. We even talked about college classes and such online, before she invited me over. I thought at that point, my life was over. I was somewhat thankful when the cops got there, because they made her dad put his gun away, and helped me put my jeans on, while handcuffed. It requires some assistance. If she had been 6 months younger, I would have faced jail time for sure, but as it was, once the cops talked to her, and confirmed I didn't break in, and that it was consensual, they cut me loose and said, "So your story checked out with her, and she's of consenting age, but I'd get in your car, and get out of here, before we tell her father that. And next time you are looking for a piece of ass, stay in your own county." Never heard from her again after that. Relatively new here, but I have way too many of these kind of stories to not share one. I was probably 13 at the time, and was getting a lift home from seeing Tomb Raider with a friend. His mum and sister were in the front, and for whatever reason, I could see his sister's boobs jiggle in the front passenger seat, and his mum's rearview mirror also gave me a perfect view down her top, and she was healthy looking. At 13, everything gives you a boner. So I was just a tent in the back trying to clamp my legs together with my dick in between them to stop my friend seeing me with a boner. His mum said they needed to grab some shopping, and took some streets with cobbles to a supermarket, and the jiggle just intensified. I honestly think my dick stretched with how hard I was, so I had to ask if I could stay in the car while they went in, which got a weird look, but they said sure, and I was relieved. They said they'd be quick, so I knew I had to try and sort something out. I watched them leave, then my head said back quote, "You'll just have to fap, otherwise it won't go." And of course my brain listened, so here I'm stroking it over ever memory of the last 15 minutes of breast jiggle, and I realize I need somewhere to finish quickly. I stretch my arm into the front, where I can see what I thought was an empty bottle of water, yank it out, and realize there's a little left, but I'll just try and take it with me or something. I quickly unscrewed the top, and with the deftest aim, I came into what I assumed was a bit of old water in the bottom. Shocked at myself, I screwed the cap on, pull my pants up, heart pounding, and sit back to calm down. What feels like 10 seconds later, I'm hearing a trolley approaching the car and my friend's mum saying back quote, "The windows are steamed up a bit," which makes me a little nervous. They pack the shopping in and everyone piles in, and his mum asks if I'm okay, and I said yep, I'm better. Why I said this, I don't know, as didn't allude to feeling ill and wanting to stay in the car because of that. She says great. Back quote, "I'll just have a drink before we set off," and that's when I realize I had left the water bottle on the armrest between the front seats. What I remember is etched into my mind as this lady turned the mirror so she could see me, and on my life, chugged the water with eye contact, no other expression, and gulped loud. So that was a second raging boner all the way home. I hid with my jacket getting out when getting dropped off, and the quickest fap known to man when I got in. I know this is the opposite, but I got a call out of the blue from a girl I had a terrible breakup with like 5 years earlier. She lied about something very serious. I found out what really happened, but never told her I found out, and ended it very abruptly. Wanted to hear her come clean. I had just started dating a girl seriously, my now wife, when she called, mid-90s, at my job, and asked if I wanted to point catch up. I said yes. We planned for dinner out, and movies back at her place. I bought wine and condoms. Had dinner, had good convo. I was just waiting for her to come clean. Went to Blockbuster, picked 2 movies, went back to her place. Watched movie 1 and split the bottle of wine. It was like 11 p and I didn't think she was any closer to coming clean with me, so I decided to leave. She begged and pleaded, convincing me to stay for the second movie. So it was over at 1 o'clock and she asked me if I would like to go upstairs. We hadn't held hands or kissed or anything. I decided that if we had gotten this far through the evening without her opening up to me, it wasn't going to happen, and I decided to leave. I opened the door to her apartment to discover about 6 in of snow. I had no idea that it was forecast to snow. I had a rear-wheel drive car, a half bottle of wine in me, and an hour drive home in good conditions. I wiped out loafers, leaving her wrapped but kept going. Took me almost 3 hours to get home, but I think I made the right decision. Stuck and crashed cars every few miles. Called her and said I was safe and had made it. Then NVR called her again. FF 12 or 13 years, when she friends me early on FB. She poured her heart out about her asshole cheating husband, burden of 2 kids, unhappy life. Asked me if I'd pack a bag, meet her somewhere, and start a new life together, abandoning our families. No. I told her what I knew about what she'd done about 18 years ago. She deleted her FB, and I never heard from her again. Hope she got life figured out. I enjoy this story, so I'm going to tell it again. My first serious girlfriend is home alone for a bit, and I think this might be the day I get off of second base. I'm all of 13, hormone-addled, and obviously confident this girl is the love of my life. It's midsummer and I know I can bike the distance in time to get there and get home before her parents get home. I tell my parents I'm going to see my friend right around the block. They warn me that a very serious thunderstorm is rolling in. 10 minutes later I'm less than halfway there, terrified, crying, pedaling as hard as I can to go downhill against the wind. My all-metal framed BMX knockoff Huffy doing its best to not get hit with lightning and fuse me to its shiny silver exterior forever. 30+ minutes after that, I pull into her garage and thank God that all the rain has hid the fact I've been ugly sobbing the entire way. Her parents then pull in as I'm literally hunched over trying to catch my breath. I tell them this was the only house I knew on the street, and it would have been life-threatening to bike the rest of the way home in this storm. They smile, probably knowing it was a lie, and decide to take pity on me. I'm treated to a nice dinner and get a very awkward drive home with her father, my bike in the back of his truck. However, in retrospect, they came home early. That would have been 1,000 times worse if I was there in the moment. Jerked off with hair gel. The big green bottle. The label was off. We were on vacation, no private time. I thought it was aloe vera gel. It was not. I was interrupted mid-stroke by my mom banging on the bathroom door. Let's go. We're leaving right now. Out the door. So, over the course of dinner, my now shrunken penis glues its shriveled self to my underwear. Anyone who ever was a teenaged boy can tell you that the state of one's penis can change minute to minute. And mine decided that my blue jeans were just too tight while sitting in between my dad and my sister at the back of the corner booth at a early 90s Bonanza Steakhouse. So, with the sweat of the agonized soul dripping down my forehead, I squirmed in place as the frenulum on my penis was literally tearing itself apart. The pain would make me shrink, then the pressure would make me grow. My discomfort eventually became obvious, and my dad asked me what was wrong. In that moment my panicking brain made the smartest leap of my young life. I leaned over and whispered that the vacation food was getting to me and I had been having a very upset stomach down there, and would he cover for me as I went to the bathroom. This had the combined effect of giving me time immediately to go to the bathroom. There was blood, by the way. Like a girl's first period, I was stuffing my undies with TP. Then later back at the motel I had to peel the gel off like it was sunburned skin. Also got the excused me time in the bathroom. Never again. I was 13 or 14 at the time. I accidentally found out that I have mutual sympathy with a girl from my class, so we started talking on the phone for like 4 to 6 hours every evening after school. Everything were good, and after about a week of those conversations we started dating. On the next day in school, when we met, I hugged her and grabbed her by the booty and said to her something like, "Get used to it." I don't know what was I thinking. I didn't mean it seriously, I think, and we had some pretty horny conversations before, so maybe I thought that she wouldn't mind if I did that. Now that we're dating, I know it's faking stupid reasoning. You should always ask for consent before doing something like that. She dumped me on the same day via text message that said something like, "It's going too fast. I think we should break up," and haven't really spoke with each other for years after that. And the weirdest thing, that I didn't even realize what I did, that I basically committed a sexual assault against her, until we talked about it years later with her. I asked for forgiveness, of course, and she said that it's okay. She understands that I was a teenager, and doesn't hold a grudge against me anymore, but still I feel awful about it. TLDR, I dated a girl for less than a day, because I was a stupid horny teenager that couldn't keep his hands to himself. I went to a strip club for the first time ever after graduating my schoolhouse in the Marine Corps. Me and 4 buddies walked in, had a fun time, and one of the girls asked me if I wanted the VIP lounge, so we could do whatever you want. Naturally I said of course. I'm making PFC pay, so I'm balling like 900 bi-weekly. I go up to this room with a beautiful woman and we start touching and kissing a bit and all that. She then stops and asks for my card, and I basically threw it at her because I was so horny. So she leaves with my card, charges it, comes back, says we are good, and whips out my dick. She's stroking me for maybe a few minutes, then pretends to get a call through her ear. She didn't have earphones or anything but touched her ear like she was answering a call. She pretended to talk to this person and she tells me, "Oh honey, your card was declined. Do you have something else we can try so you can continue?" Without question I threw her my credit card. She came back later and said it worked and helped me finish, and then I finally returned to my friends. Well, I found out later that yes, my first card did get approved and was charged $600. My second card was also charged $600 because she lied and said it didn't go through. Not only that, but my dumb as drunk self never closed the tab, so all the drinks my friends ordered when I returned was on me, which was another $300 in drinks. TLDR, a stripper gave me an okay blue job for $1,500 overall. I learned a huge lesson that day, and when I was a sergeant I warned my juniors about the strippers every weekend. Edit, yes, I'm also very aware now about the legality of this whole situation. I was barely 18 at the time. I was still a virgin too. I realized when I sobered up the next day just how badly I faked up. My one friend was worse off. He somehow owed $2,200. It happened like 10 years ago. Met up with this girl I had just started talking to on Meet. She was not my type at all. Honestly, her profile picture was just an animated picture of a girl. So I wasn't 100% sure what this person looked like, but I needed some action. She kept telling me she had these roommates who didn't like it when strangers came over, and that one of her roommates got into some bad trouble for assault a while back. It was weird how often she kept telling me that. But she sent me only one picture of herself, and it was just a picture of Tiggs. Could been screenshotted from Google or could actually been hers, who knows, but that's all it took. Next thing I know, I'm driving 2 hours to her place at 1 AM. When I get there, the place looks abandoned. She texted me to come to the front door. When I get to the door, she opens it up, and it's so dark that I can't see shit in this house. She yanks my hand and pulls me in and locks the door. She leans in and puts her hand over my mouth and says, "Matt just got home earlier today and is asleep, so we have to be really quiet." I didn't put 2 and 2 together at that moment because I was so horny. So she grabbed my hand and lead me to her bed. She gets right to business as soon as I sit down and begins to suck me off, and then tells me to stand up on her bed and lean against the wall while she finishes me off. As soon as it's done, she just tells me to be quiet, leaving, or it won't be pretty. I was lucky I wasn't robbed or killed. Finally, an appropriate place to share this story of horny male oddity. What I did was pretty dumb, but I think the sheer weirdness of what I did outpaces its relative stupidity. First, let's set the scene. A shopping mall in a somewhat ghetto suburb. I'm heading over from the bus station so I can drop in and see this girl I really like at Hot Topic, where she works. We are both in community college. She's studying art, while I have no idea what I want to study, much less what I want to eat for lunch on any given day. She's popular, with multiple piercings, stretched earlobes, and an edgy personality. I'm an insecure wallflower with Asperger's syndrome and a stunningly dire need to be loved by a girl, because she loves me, and not just because we're related. Like I'm now, 10 years later, I'm lonely and depressed. My parents and other adults in my life have many different ideas about what I should study, and while I may not yet know my place in the world, I know their ideas are definitively not what I want for myself. She is, according to my socially conservative parents, a bad girl. To me, she's strong enough to save me from my crushing insecurities and shower me with love, as the gardener carefully waters and feeds his plants. I am, once again, in love with a young woman who, in reality, likely never really liked me much to begin with, and only tolerated my presence to the best of her ability. Looking back, I wonder why she even bothered to give me that courtesy in favor of a firm rebuke towards my repeated unwelcome advances. Anyhow, it's night. Or, at least I'm pretty sure it was dark out, and this definitely didn't happen in the span of hours we normally think of as the morning. My house in a short hop, a slight skip and the brief jump from my present location at the bus stop after getting off one bus to catch a transfer, and they come about every half hour, so I figure I can make a sojourn over to see my girl at work. She told me earlier of some major issues between herself and her manager, and I figured giving her a little visit would help cheer her up. So I mosey across the road, through the cracked parking lot, into the mall, and up to the second level. Hot topic, and more importantly, my love awaits. She's using a folding table to fold shirts when I arrive. I'll let her know I've been thinking about her, and about how I've been concerned for her at her job. Now, people with ASD are notoriously bad at reading social cues, but even I could tell she was, at the present moment, quite busy. I figured it would be best to make my leave, to avoid causing further issues, and as I'm walking from the store to the escalator, I spot it. A beanie, sitting on top of a trash can. I was so overcome with emotion, and longing for love, that I could almost hear it crying out, to be rescued from the dismal landfill fate it was currently awaiting. A quick text to my love, "Hey, I just found this cool hat, do you want it?" No, she did not want it. PS. While I still struggle greatly with social cues and appropriate behavior, I like to think I've become slightly less demented concerning my dating and seduction tactics. Still, if any of you happen to know a slightly narcissistic French spy who can help me, please do reach out to him. 10 years later, and Scout is still closer to getting an actual date with Miss Pauline than I'm to kiss a woman. Drove for with this girl I was very much into. We had what she said was a summer fling about a year before this. We continued to be more than friends after the fling. We went on a pretty remote and intimate camping trip to Hunting Island, SC. Picked one of the spots where you park your car and have to hike a little ways to your spot. I was very much into her, and she knew it. Thinking this was definitely my chance to solidify things, I was beyond hyped. Just the two of us there for a whole week sounded perfect. The first night we were there, she decided to tell me she did not see me like that, and had no feelings towards me in that regard. We got 3 big bottles of liquor for this week. I decided to build a badass bonfire, still proud of that bad boy today, and drank myself stupid. Woke up screaming in the middle of the night, because I passed out in a chair and basically slow roasted my hand for hours. I assume, leaned forward with my elbow on my knee and my hand way too close to the fire. Said person woke up to my screams to check on me, and we tried to leave the campsite to go to a hospital, but we were locked in and couldn't go anywhere. Luckily I was still fairly intoxicated and was able to sheetily sleep the rest of the night, still writhing in pain for most of it. We ended up leaving the next morning to drive back home. She never once asked how my hand was or anything like that. But here's the kicker, this faking cunt asked me not to tell anyone the real reason we came home, and then decided to go back and finish out our faking camping trip with her mother. Drove almost 2 hours in the middle of the night at 16 years old to see my best friend's cousin. Lied to my parents, told them I was staying over a friend's house, Took mom's car after a 100-mile trip, and I'm literally less than a mile away on rural country roads. I passed a street. Hadn't seen a car for a while, so just pulled a quick U-turn. Ended up being more of a 3-point as the road was a bit narrow. However, just as I completed the turn, a car comes around the corner a third of a mile away. Ends up being a cop. Pulls me over. Can't let me go because I was driving on an intermediate permit and wasn't allowed to be out between 0000200600. Had to call my mom and explain that, hey, remember how I said I was staying at Brett's house? Yeah. Do you mind coming and getting me from jail 2 hours away? Going to see the same girl a few months later. I'm 17 at this time and make the trip in the middle of the night again. Super hyped. Finally getting to lose my virginity. Park on the next street over. Again, it's a super rural area, so street is more of a gravel turn off. We end up puking up in the backseat of my 04 Ford Focus. Not only was that just a miserable experience, but I was on antidepressants at the time. So my lanky 6'2" as is trying to contort my legs around the backseat of a compact car while struggling to enjoy what would have been a mediocre sexual encounter in the best of circumstances. I end up lasting for 3 hours. Never did finish. She heads back to get inside before her aunt notices she's gone. Meanwhile, I put my pants on and prepare to make the 2-hour drive back. Kiss her goodbye, turn the key. It's dead. I guess at this point I should also mention it was January and there was a snowstorm recently. I end up walking down this rural back road at 6 AM in the morning on iced over gravel, going door to door asking if someone could come jump my car because I really didn't want to call my parents and tell them I'd done it again. I ended up slipping at one point and ripping my jeans and busting up my knee, so looking back at it and me walking miles with a bloody knee just to get away with 3 hours of uncomfortable sex and not even coming, should've just called my parents. Was staying over at my best friend's house when a girl I was dating at the time called me and asked me to come over because her dad was out at the bar and her siblings were asleep. So I left my friend's house and drove over there, but made sure to park a street over, so my car wasn't right out front in case her dad came home. We hopped in the backseat of her car and started making out, and she took her shirt off, which was pretty cool, but I was also super shy and had zero clue what I was doing, so I kind of just ignored it until she offered to blow me. I declined because it was only like the second time we were even remotely intimate, mainly because her dad was a psycho, so I was just trying to take it slow. Then her dad pulled in the driveway right past her car. We ducked down hoping he didn't see us, and at this point I kind of blacked out from the fear, but I'm pretty sure we were about to get away with it until he got inside and didn't see his daughter anywhere. Checked outside to see two kids sneaking away from a car and just absolutely faking lost it. I tried to reason with him for like 30 seconds before I realized I was either about to die or get my ass kicked, so I bailed and went back to my car. I got back to my buddy's place like an hour and a half after I left and found my sheet on his front porch. I went home, defeated and sad that I basically ruined my buddy's night for a top/less macchiato session with the daughter of the biggest psycho in town. A couple weeks later she tried to say it was fine and that we'd work it out with her dad, but I basically was just like I'm not really sure I'm interested enough to deal with him, sorry. Anyway, I'm pretty sure she's married now, so hopefully that guy figured out her dad, because I sure as shit wasn't willing to. I responded to a text from a woman I spent a few weeks with then broke up with. I knew I shouldn't have, at the time. I was lonely and horny. I had just recovered from a car accident and learned to walk again. I was in a fragile mental state. I believe she has histrionic and narcissistic personality disorder. She emotionally abused, manipulated, and gaslit me. She had this one attractive, charming, and confident man believing if it wasn't for her I would be alone. She cheated non-stop, that I didn't find out until the divorce. I was on pain medication for the accident, but due to the way she made me feel about myself, I started using more and more and more, until I was a heroin addict 11 years. My dad and I renovated a home that we agreed to have be in her name only, student loans, 5 years of paying for the mortgage, food, renovations, cable, internet, takeout, ECT point, and now she is trying to take it all from me. The day we separated was the day I lost the urge to use. We have an almost 3-year-old who I love more than life itself. When we were trying for a kid, I asked her to let me get clean first. She said no. She took advantage of me in an unconscious state and became pregnant. She was arrested for DWI and child endangerment for driving drunk with my son in the car. She lost custody for a month and a half, and he just faked off with no attempt to see or talk to him. My son begs and pleads to not go to his Monday. Cries. When he comes home to me, the very first thing he always says is, "I'm so happy to finally be home. I don't want to go back to mom's." I have no doubt in my mind that she cares very little for my son. She uses him to punish me. She pawns him off to her parents on her time. In the past 6 months she has attempted to move in with 2 different men. I have only one regret in life, and it was letting that venomous snake bite me. 11 years absolutely and completely ruined. I skipped football practice after school. For the record, I was terrible at football. I hated it, but I had to spend 2 hours doing something before heading home, otherwise my parents would know I skipped. I remember just sitting on the school steps texting this girl who wasn't very pretty, but had a crush on me. She pretty much said, "Come over, no one's home." I said I would only come over unless I was getting a blue job, and she said she would. Men will understand this. It was my first blue job. I was going to climb Everest if I had to for this. She lived about 2 miles from the school and said if I could come over before her mom came home, we'd be in business. It must have been sometime in the spring going summer, because I remember it being hot as shit that day, so I ran. I ran in cargo shorts with Vans and a backpack of school sheet. I ran up hills, down hills, through backyards, cutting across the highway until one of my friends saw me running. He yelled, "What are you doing, dude?" from his bike, and I screamed out of breath, "I'm gonna get my first blue job." I hopped on his pegs and he pedaled his ass off to get me most of the way. By the end of the trip, I was sweating so bad and smelled like shit I felt bad that she actually went down on me. It was the worst head I had ever gotten from that moment on. TLDR, I ran to a girl's house for my first blue job, but was super sweaty and stank like shit. She blew me anyways. It wasn't good. The only reason I'm posting this here is because it'll almost definitely get buried, and fuck it. I probably had sex with my stepsister on a family vacation when we were in our 20s. My mom is married to her dad, and we've known each other since we were teenagers. We all went to the beach one summer when I was like 23-ish, and she was 21 or so. Last night there, the adults decide to give us kids the house for the night. For some context, my stepsister and I were not the only ones in the house that night. My biological sister, her husband, and her husband's brother were there too. Anyway, everyone ends up getting wasted as hell by the pool, drinking, smoking weed, and partying. My memory gets vague at a certain point, but I distinctly remember sitting on the steps of the pool in the backyard with my stepsister sitting in my lap. Eventually, everyone goes inside, and apparently I started out on the couch, with stepsies in a bedroom adjacent to the one I was in. About an hour later, a fire alarm goes off. Still no idea why to this day. The house was not on fire, and my BO sister comes downstairs to see what's going on. I was no longer on the couch, and when she knocked on the door to the adjacent bedroom, stepsies cracked the door, told her everything was fine in there, and then shut it fairly quickly. That's all I know, and details about it are fuzzy and unreliable, since they came from people who were also drunk as shit at the time. According to my BOCs, however, I totally got drunk and horny the last night of vacation, and stuck it to my stepsister. Stepsies and I very rarely ever speak anymore since then. I had keys to my 6-story gym where I was a trainer. I frequently stayed late when everyone was gone to work on programs for clients. My hot female colleague left her computer screen on, and she had nearly naked women posing athletically. I decided to try to access some porn, since that had gotten me horny, and I was alone at almost 11 PM. Anyway, I found out I could watch porn as there were no blocks. I was so amped up I decided to print out and frame one of the nastiest chicks I saw, so I could finish at home. I know, really too dumb. But I locked the office door. I was safe and private. So, the printer I used was in a common work area, and I hit print, and it wasn't responding, so I kept hitting print. Finally it was done, and I grabbed the prints, locked up and went home. My immediate boss called me the following morning, and asked if I could come in for a meeting. Sure, I said, and appeared shortly. Nothing out of the ordinary. She was holding a manila folder when we met, and asked me to come into the CEO's office. Well, 3 of us sat down, and Samantha, my boss, opens the folder and asks if I was responsible for the prints. My mind went blank with shock and my mouth dried up. I said yes. I was let go, as you can imagine. They were shocked as well. Turned out that I hit print too many times and the printer ran out of paper, so stopped. I, however, thought great, that was quick, and went home. Dumb. The printer wasn't done, just out of paper. The mostly female staff loaded paper in the morning and the printer resumed the job immediately. They all saw Born being printed and freaked out, like what the fuck. The adept quickly concluded it was me. It was a long time getting home that day. My legs felt like rubber, and I was stunned, because I lost a great job after 5 years. I took a better position elsewhere in 2 weeks or so, but God, I was shaken. Embarrassment isn't even close to what I felt. I ran into my boss sometime later, and we actually had a good conversation, brief but positive, so I wasn't feeling like a creep and a fool after a while. To this day though, I still cringe. I've told a few friends this story and they all think it's great comedy and stupid bad luck. Conclusion: do not go NSFW ever. I took my friend for his 18th birthday to a full nude strip club in a sketchy part of San Francisco. He was still a virgin, never even seen a nude woman in person. Our other friend didn't have an id, so we left him outside. Within seconds, 2 girls start leading us into a private room. For some reason, they separate us, and my poor buddy gets led to a different room. The stripper starts rubbing my leg, asking what I want, and I'm just like, I have no idea. I've never been to a strip club. Then another woman comes in fully nude and puts my hand between her legs while the first woman starts reaching for my wallet. The first woman asks how much I have, and I say, nothing. I just wanted to watch. They then open my wallet and see I only have like $20, which she then pockets. She keeps asking why I don't think they are pretty enough while rubbing my cork. They then tell me there's an ATM. She pulls out my debit card, but I tell them, I'm okay, I just wanted to hang out downstairs. I get up, take my wallet back, and leave the room back to the main floor. My buddy is still gone for a while, and I'm just kinda wondering what happened to him. Suddenly, I see him being led back to the main floor by this tiny cute stripper. He seems guilty and kind of out of it. I asked him what happened, and he said 3 girls kept hassling him for money and teasing him. They kept offering him blue jobs for $50 and ended just taking all his birthday money from him. We leave after having pretty much been robbed and searched for our other friend. We finally found him further down in the Tenderloin smoking weed with some homeless guy. Had sex when I was so tired that I had a fever right after. So basically I'm a college student and was hooking up with someone significantly older than me. Now I didn't want to be in a relationship with that person, cause I knew he was the type to not treat me right and break my heart, but he was good as a friend and very experienced, so we gave a shot to friends with benefits. For some reason I have always had hots for this guy, even though he wasn't my type at all. That is the most natural thing that I have ever experienced. Now one day my friends and I go to this concert. OFC, we left around 3, reached there around 5, stayed till 11, and came back till 1. Also, we did this all right after classes. Now my apartment's main gate is at the stairs for some reason and I lived on the 3rd floor. This guy was on the ground floor so his flat was accessible. I went ahead and crashed at his place. Changed into comfy clothes and all. As I was trying to sleep, he started touching me. And I have always craved attention from this guy, cause the terms of our relationship was never clear and I didn't know how he felt about me. So anyways, I get horny quickly, and we end up having a longer session in which I gave him long as blue job as well. I started to get feverish in the middle of sesh, and he got concerned, but I just brushed it off. Now right after we are done I'm weak and very sleepy cause I hadn't slept in a while as well. As my eyes are closing I see him hovering over me and giving me medicine. I have that, and fall dead asleep. The next time I was getting hot again cause I was aroused. He asked me if I'm getting sick, and I was like not this time. Dude started laughing his ass off during sex. Now we have stopped hooking up and are friends. I went to this chick's house cause she simply wanted to bang, and I was young and down, so I made my way over. After a hot and sweaty 7 minutes of kissing, and probably 2 minutes of alleged banging, I was ready to be on my way. She went to check if the coast was clear. She wasn't supposed to have boys over for midnight bang sessions. Shocker. Apparently her uncle was sleeping on the couch. She ran back up to tell me the bad news. I was like, okay, so do I just wait for him to pass out and then slip out? She said well no cause he'll hear you open the door. I then wondered if this was her way to force me to live up there forever. So the wheels started to spin as I formed a plan. I decided I was gonna pull a prison break and tie a few sheets together and shimmy down the back of her house. She couldn't believe I was actually gonna attempt it, but after a quick tie down to a ladder that I had her sit on to hold the weight, there I went. Scarred sheetless, I couldn't believe I was actually going through with it. I held on tightly and inched down on some Mission Impossible sheet. I was almost home free, and then it happened. She had those glass blinds that opened in her kitchen. When I ever so gently tapped my foot on the top coming down, I heard a pin slide out, then glass just rained down to her driveway. I jumped the rest of the way and landed on top, looked up, and she leaned out the window like go go. I got out there and ran home in what felt like 5 minutes, but was actually at least 20 away. Never seen her again. Would I do it again? Yeah, probably. I'm a faking horny fool.